Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. I'm seeing a lot of disagreements amongst chart analysts as to when specifically Bitcoin is most likely to finally hit a new all-time high above roughly $108,000 and go on its final parabolic move to the upside with, of course, altcoins, including XRP most importantly, following in pursuit and outperforming Bitcoin. But even though that's true, that there are tons of opinions, and, I always find it interesting when there's a lot of overlap in opinion from analysts, because I find that usually when that happens, something is indeed about to happen, or they're correct. Even though that's the case, I can tell you this, there is no shortage of analysts that agree that this is accumulation. That's what we're in right now. And I will tell you this, I'm finding multiple analysts indicating that XRP specifically, that the price action, it's compressing. So you guys remember, of course, if you were around back then, it wasn't that long ago, back in November and, especially just a few months before that, we in the XRP community, and certainly on this channel, I was regularly talking about how volatility for XRP was continuing to decrease, and Bollinger Bands were tightening. In fact, they were the tightest in history. The last time they were that tight was right before XRP went on that rampage in 2017 and just exploded. And so tightening of Bollinger Bands does indicate that you're about to see an explosive move. Now, you don't know exactly when it's going to pop, but that is an indication that you're going to see that. And that in and of itself doesn't tell you if the burst will be to the upside or the downside, but I posited that since we were in a bull run, it just made some freaking sense that when this damn thing popped, that it would be to the upside. And that's what happened here. Well, XRP is coiling up again. It's doing it again. The volatility, it's decreasing. The volumes are decreasing. This is what precedes major moves. This really is just an accumulation zone, folks. So, I'll let the chart guys argue as to what's most likely. There are some that think that we go a little bit lower before we go back up, but out of the analysts I follow, even those analysts believe that we're still going to see a massive rally where Bitcoin does hit a new all-time high, where we do see alt season, where Bitcoin dominance finally starts to drop. So I think it's just a matter of time. But before going further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say are right. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. All right, as I record this video, it's 3:55 a.m. Central Time, Wednesday, May 7th, 2025. XRP is $2.14. Bitcoin is $96,871. So we're actually up a little bit right now compared to the most recent low the other day. I know the 24-hour low is $2.08. Didn't it get down slightly lower than that? I could be mistaken. 2006. Well, maybe that. I probably guess that was about it. I was thinking it might have been $2.06. Either way, we're splitting hairs at that point. The point is, at least at the moment, we are moving to the upside, and it never made sense to be freaking out when the tariff news broke in April. Remember that, and it was the end of the world, except for it's not. Take a look at this post from Anthony Pompliano. He shared this with his 1.7 million followers on X. He simply wrote, the S&P 500 is down less than 4% for the year. Everyone needs to calm down. And he posted that just yesterday. And so this is the S&P 500 on the screen. It's a pretty good barometer for how the stock market's doing, because it's the 500 largest publicly traded companies in the United States. And yet down for the year, but that's not a crazy range. And more interestingly is this next post from him. It's showing what's happened since the scary tariff news. Look at this. This is the S&P 500 again. And he said, the S&P 500 is up 11% in the last month. All you had to do was buy the dip. It ain't rocket science. Exactly. So you can't know exactly where the bottom is, but those people who dollar cost average in crisis moments like this, they tend to end up doing well, because it's not like the economy of the United States is just going to cease to exist because there's a rough patch or a scary time. That's not the case. Betting against the United States economy is going to be a bad idea. So that's why those, and I understand that the markets and the economy, they're not exactly the same thing, obviously. But why did the market tank? Out of fears that the economy was going to suffocate here. And, you're never going to enter a world where there are no recessions, but recessions, even then, they average, on like a year typically? And they're only so deep, and most people aren't like horrendously impacted by them. People just need to stop living in fear. If you just would have a long-term mindset and stop being fearful about every damn thing and stop hiding under a rock, it's going to be okay. And the reason I highlight this is because stocks are risk-on assets and cryptocurrencies are risk-on assets. So in many ways, they get treated the same. It's just the degree to which people throw in money and how volatile they are. That's where it's different. But they're risk-on assets, and so if people are in a risk-off mode, that's where everything drops, and that happened with the stock market. It happened with crypto at the same time, right? Well, it's not surprising to see this, though. This is not the end of the world. And of course, tariffs were supposed to be the end of the world, but now you see posturing from the Trump administration that actually they're going to be talking, including to China specifically, which is the one that's the big one, right? That's what people have been worried about. Well, look at this post from Mario Nawfal. SEC Scott Bessent, China's back in the game. We meet this weekend. So this is a post from just yesterday. And here's a quote from U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. The world has been coming to the U.S., and China has been the missing piece. I was going to be in Switzerland to negotiate with the Swiss. Turns out the Chinese team is traveling through Europe, and they'll be in Switzerland too. We will meet on Saturday and Sunday. End quote. Okay, and so this was messy, and you can argue about whether you do or don't like Trump's approach. I'm not interested in getting into that level of detail on this particular channel. It doesn't matter for the purposes of what we're talking about big picture. But of course, this wasn't going to persist forever. That was never the most probable thing. And now you can see the administration here put clear signs out there, calming the market. They're on message. This isn't just him. This means it's from Trump on down. They're generally pretty good about messaging anyway. Not perfect. But this is the approach. This is what's happening here. What do you think happens when the news officially comes that there is some sort of deal made that doesn't spook the market? And then on top of that, you've got global liquidity rising, and you've got, think about this too. You've got, my God, Tether dominance has been through the roof. That's way higher than it should be, right? There's so much, as they call it, dry powder on the sidelines that can be deployed already. Even just in stable coins. Everything is so perfectly teed up, including XRP. And hang with me, I'm going to get to XRP specific stuff absolutely in this video. But you got to understand the broader context of what's going on, because everything is intertwined and this all matters. And I'm telling you, my humble opinion, it does not make sense to be fearful. It makes sense to be excited now about what is about to happen. The timing's just too perfect. Here's another post from chart analyst TechDev. Shared this with his 522,000 followers on X, and he's been ramming this point down the throats of every single one of his damn followers. And so I'm trying to do the same thing because this is crucial. You need, I want as many people as possible to be aware of this. And it's not that this is the end-all be-all. No metric is. This is a big one, though. This actually is. As it turns out, the price action for Bitcoin, directionally anyway, it most of the time correlates with global liquidity, global M2. Specifically. And so we're seeing as global liquidity increases, Bitcoin follows, and there's a lag time, because once the liquidity is available, it's got to be allocated, so on and so forth. So there's a 10 to 12 week lag time. But when we see these moments where you have dramatic increases in liquidity historically, and you can just look on your screen here, you can see what's happened here. Bitcoin follows. And so this is the point that he's making. And this is lining up. Do you see all of the confluence? And this is at a time where XRP specifically is playing catch up, because it's finally got some goddamn legal clarity. And it was suppressed for years and years because of the nonsense from those asshat pricks over at the SEC. But now that's over. Now the market gets to pick winners and losers and gets to sufficiently properly factor in XRP. And it's so obvious that XRP is an early winner of the crypto space. It's just now that participants in crypto on a global scale feel safe putting the money where they actually wanted to the whole time. And from a fundamental perspective, having watched XRP on a daily basis literally for over 7 years now, I have to tell you, I have never seen the fundamentals of XRP stronger than they are today. Never. In fact, it's not even close. So I thought that XRP was strong back in 2017. It made sense back then. It's in way better position from a fundamental perspective. I just think that the market's not sufficiently valuing XRP yet, even though obviously we're getting closer. It's not 49 cents like it was half a year ago. It's now over $2, and it already hit a new all-time high. And so it's nice to see it where it is. But I still think that the market's got some catching up to do. It doesn't happen in one fell swoop. It just doesn't. And so that's why it's so exciting. The market is going to continue figuring this out. XRP's here to stay. It just is. And so TechDev wrote, liquidity has always led Bitcoin at this stage in the cycle, and it recently took off to new highs as a breakout from consolidation, which is always when Bitcoin has gone parabolic. But this time is different, right, folks? Which has always been when Bitcoin has gone parabolic. Folks, this time is not different. I'm not going to bet on that. I mean, fine, technically you will have something happen for the first time, so I won't literally put 100% probability on it. But if we're talking in probability, what do you think is most probable? You know where I stand. Take a look at this post from the Daily Hodl. Bitcoin has one final leg of outperformance before altcoins see boost, according to crypto analyst. A closely followed crypto analyst says that Bitcoin may have one last breakout rally before altcoins start to outperform Bitcoin. And by the way, folks, I have to be clear, Bitcoin absolutely is going to peak at some point. It's probably got one final leg up in terms of price action, but Bitcoin dominance can, and I expect will be falling as it's moving up in price on that final run. That'll be a key signal, guys. It's like, probably time to think about scaling out, okay? Especially for people like me that have really been hanging on, and I'd prefer to start scaling out on that final leg. I'd prefer, if possible. I'm talking about Bitcoin now. I will finally sell Bitcoin. I mean, I've held Bitcoin as low as $3,200. I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm good to go. But I do want to see that. And then I want to see XRP rip to the upside. And I'm assuming that's going to be after, because that's typically how this goes. And then I'm going to start scaling out of my XRP. And I think that a lot of you listening, you're probably going to be feeling enticed if it goes where we're thinking it's going, right? Anyway, the pseudonymous analyst known as Rect Capital tells his 546,300 followers on the social media platform X that the Bitcoin dominance metric may soon peak, opening the doors for altcoins to ignite explosive moves to the upside. Bitcoin dominance calculates how much of the crypto market cap belongs to Bitcoin. A peaking Bitcoin dominance chart suggests that altcoins are close to outshining Bitcoin. And he said, quote, Bitcoin dominance has one final leg left in its macro uptrend on the road to 71% in red. That's this red line here. That's what he's talking about on this chart, for those of you looking. It says, any dips into 64% would constitute a retest. A successful retest would enable final trend continuation on the road to 71%, which is the green box. And so you can see what has happened the last couple cycles in terms of Bitcoin dominance here. Even including most recently what happened. That's about where it got. Now, that doesn't mean it absolutely has to get up there. Some analysts I follow say, I mean, it could get up there. That would be historically normal, but it really doesn't have to. There are a lot more coins. Everything isn't literally exactly the same. So the point is, even though it can keep going, and there are a number of analysts I follow that think there's a good chance, at least in the very short term, it's going to, which means Bitcoin kind of outshines, and that's where the attention goes. It's going to peak still. It's still going to. Do you see everything perfectly falling into place where we would want and hope it to? Everything. Look what's happening with stocks. People are quitting the freaking out. I think some people are finally starting to get it. You've got the proper messaging that you would hope and want coming from the Trump administration on tariff stuff. And once that goes away, that's the big one, right? That's the psychological one that scared everybody. You got global liquidity increasing. You've got XRP more primed than it's ever been. It looks like Bitcoin's about to top off here in terms of dominance. And historically, that means it goes on a final leg up. Altcoins finally recover. Everything is looking just like you'd want it to be. This is what it's been like for each of the last two bull cycles that have been here. I would expect this one to end no differently, at least in those regards. Not that every single thing would be literally exactly the same, but the big picture stuff like that does tend to be, right? Here's a post from chart analyst Cryptolica, XRP USD chart on the screen here, and he's been very insistent about this. This is his expectation, XRP going up $9 to $10 per XRP. And he's been very steadfast in that, despite all of the noise for months and months and months. XRP is just consolidating here, folks. The analysts that have been here for a while, they've not lost their conviction because of the price action, because the price action in and of itself is not an indication of long-term viability of any individual cryptocurrency. It can be an indicator, but that in and of itself frequently isn't, because the entire asset class moves in tandem. So what, like, So think about this. When thousands of altcoins crash at the same time, does that mean that the fundamentals of all of those altcoins ceased to be good on the same day at the same moment, and then they continue to crash down to a bottom, down to the same day also before they reversed? Do you really think that? Or is it emotional buyers and sellers? Well, it's emotional buyers and sellers. So if you understand that's your human competition and you just stop behaving like them, you are light years ahead of them when it comes to investing. The way to win is to invest, have broad exposure to crypto markets, and then just hold however long it takes. And so it does require actual conviction. So you got to understand like why you're doing what you're doing and actually believe in it and think that you're making sense. And you got to decide what's right for you and what your risk tolerances are. I don't know what's right for you, but I found what's right for me. And I am so glad that I came across crypto not any later than I did. I'm really glad. It's been life-changing to this point. And I haven't cashed out to USD. I've just been riding the train. But it's at the point where if we really do have this blow off top, like I will be finally enticed, I believe. But it's still just like the degree to which my net worth is higher because all I've done is nothing after buying crypto. I'm not going to say the number because I'm not comfortable doing that, but it's not even close. Like the degree to which, I'm not even going on further. I'll just say that I'm just trying to deliver a general message. Because there's nothing special about me. It's not a braggy thing, just to be clear. I'm telling you, there's nothing special about me. All I did is buy stuff and did nothing. You can too, if you just understand some very basic things and have the intestinal fortitude to follow it through. Like you actually can do that. That's the empowering thing about crypto. And there's never been an opportunity like this in the history of our species. And you're living in the advent of all this. Like, how could you not be excited right now? It's up to you to make it happen, though, and to not screw this up. We are our own worst enemies when it comes to investing. The emotions get to people. Here's a post from chart analyst Steph is Crypto. XRP is coiling up. In 3 to 6 weeks from now, you'll regret not having bought more. And so you can see what he's highlighting. And by the way, he is one of the many analysts out there who accurately called XRP breaking out for this market cycle, melting faces, outperforming. He was talking about remember I was talking earlier in the video about how XRP had the most compressed Bollinger Bands in its history in 2024, even tighter than in 2017, which is what precedes a massive move. Well, he was one of the many analysts out there talking about that. And if you look on the chart, you can see how narrow they were right here. That's these red lines. See how narrow that got? Tightest in history, and then look at what happened. When the market went, it went, and XRP was part of it. So what's happening now? Tighter yet again. So, there can't be, he can't know for sure exactly when the next move is. He's estimating here 3 to 6 weeks. Okay, but just understand, no analyst can consistently predict time. The best you can get is, hey, here's what it looked like last time. If history rhymes in terms of timeline, here's what it would be. That's the best you can get, but nobody can consistently promise, because even if the analysts are right about a chart formation, it can go faster or slower than in the past. So take it for what it's worth. But the point is that's happening. And so, for like half a year in 2024, I was like, guys, because I think it was April. Yeah, it was April when I started talking about this. Last year, I was like, guys, Bollinger Bands, tightest in history, kind of a big deal. And I talked about that consistently for half a year. And then it went. So I'm not saying it has to be half a year from now. I'm just saying I didn't know, and I told you at the time, like, I don't know for sure when it's going to go, but this does matter. And then the Bollinger Bands opened up, obviously. That's, in that sense, we're at another one of those types of moments. So again, whether it's today, tomorrow, next week, next month, I don't know about you, but I'm going to be here because it's going to happen. It's going to happen, and I'm going to get mine. And I hope that you get yours, because the opportunity is very real. It is here. Here's a post from Cassie Trades, XRP USD chart on the screen. It says, momentum is building. XRP approaches key fib levels. The market has become relatively quiet lately, but momentum is starting to pick up. And XRP is dropping to one of the most critical support tests we've seen in weeks. After a steady pullback from the local high at $2.36, XRP is now approaching a key support region between $2.07.8 and $2. This, and by the way, so this was posted in the morning yesterday, but it's still absolutely relevant. So obviously we're slightly higher than that at the moment. But anyway, she says, this zone has acted as a pivot point in the past, and it's where we could see the market start to turn if strength returns. On the lower time frames, relative strength index is showing signs of selling exhaustion, and the price action is beginning to compress, often a signal that a bigger move is on the horizon. Folks, what do you know? What do you know? We're not going to stay in accumulation mode with XRP forever. It's been a few months. It's amazing. This is my favorite accumulation range that I've ever been in because it's above $2. We've never had an accumulation range above $2 in the history of XRP. This is absolutely glorious. So when it goes, my God, the highs we will see. Anyway, then she says, though, this part of the correction is sensitive. We may still see one more flush or surprise drop targeting the major $1.90 before momentum shifts. This would likely move quickly, and by the time it's obvious, the opportunity will probably be already gone. Off these supports, we're looking for XRP to gain the strength to break past $2.25, $2.68, and beyond. So, and I've seen kind of posts that are kind of similar to that, warnings like we could go a little bit lower first, but nothing terribly scary, honestly. Here's a post from chart analyst Dom, XRP USD. He says, earlier today, price hit an apex of the previous 100-day downtrend, the election VWAP, and the monthly R VWAP. This is an area that we want to see continue to get defended, as stated yesterday, equivalent to Bitcoin holding mid $93,000. If that fails, we look in the 190s. Well, folks, that sounds kind of similar to the last analyst, that price level, if we do. Not a guarantee, but if we do. And this is also from yesterday. Then he says, to see an immediate trend reversal, we need to see price regain $2.12 for multiple VWAP sit. Well, hot damn. At least at the time I'm recording this, we're above that $2.14. Well, gosh darn. Here's a post from Crypto Insight UK. He says, XRP short-term liquidity. He says, if we get a pullback to this white box, I'll be right, so, maybe even closer to $2. It says, I'm taking a long on XRP and will add to it if we come to retest lows. So if we go that low, which a couple analysts are warning, it's possible, not like they're freaking out about it, but he's like, oh, this will be a great opportunity. So if it does happen, some people will be they'll be feeling down in the dumps. Oh, the XRP is down again. Well, the people that have been here for a while, they'll just be like, oh, okay. Well, in particular, if they want to try and make some money, like, okay, well, I guess I'm gonna buy some then. And in this case, he's talking about trading, but he is a hodler also. There's also this from chart analyst Ali Martinez. Key levels to watch for XRP are $2 and $2.26. A decisive close outside this range could set the tone for the next major trend. So those are a couple key levels to watch in the short term, he says. And that's within the realm of what I've seen from tons of different analysts. So key takeaways, everything's fine. XRP is fantastic. It's still substantially outperforming the broader crypto market. And the confluence for everything you want on a macro scale, factoring everything even outside of crypto, because it's all intertwined, it's where you'd want and hope it would be. I've been saying this even since the depths of the scariness with the tariff stuff, and crypto was plummeting and the stock market was falling. Go back, listen to my videos. What was I saying? What was my tune? It was just as cheery as this because I knew it was going to be short term, because these things are never forever, even though I didn't know how long it would be. And technically you could still have some scary stuff before an actual bottom. Fine, maybe that could happen, but it's still, my message will still be the same. It doesn't matter. You just have to be more patient than everyone else, because this is not the end of the world. Okay. When that stuff happens, everything's lining up just like you'd want it. And global liquidity, my God, come on, get excited, damn it. Look, I'm telling you, if you're not excited about this, I am convinced that you are not on this side of the dirt, because that would not make any damn sense. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say, all right? That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.